First off, thanks everyone for attending tonight's US 16 Corridor Study public meeting. My name is John Wigan. I'm the Consultant Project Manager at HDR, and we have about a 45-minute presentation to introduce the build options at the US 16, 16B Catron Boulevard intersection and US 16 Neck Yoke Road intersections. First off, a couple housekeeping items. If you did not get a chance to sign in, I encourage you to do so here before you leave. If you leave your contact information, we'll make sure to add you to the mail and email list for future notifications and study updates. Also, at the sign-in table is a comment card and informational handout with information on tonight's meeting as well as the overall US 16 Corridor study. Study website, us16corridor.com. All the information you see here tonight from this public meeting, including display boards, the animations on the screen that we'll also show here tonight in the presentation, a copy of the presentation as well as a recording of the presentation will all be posted to the website here within a couple days. So don't worry about taking pictures or anything like that. All this information will be posted here within a couple days. Tonight's meeting format is two parts. The first one here is a presentation. I said we have a lot of information here to cover, so request that you please hold all comments and questions until after the presentation, which will break into an open house. For your questions and comments after the presentation, there's a number of members from the study advisory team here to answer your questions and go into further explanation on the build options that we'll discuss here tonight. There are multiple methods to provide feedback to what you've seen here tonight, including comment cards, study website, as well as reaching out to any of the study contacts. The one thing that we do request is that you provide all comments back to us by December 24th. Allow us to move into the next steps of the study shortly after the first of the year. So the purpose of tonight's intersection build option meeting, really four parts. Here to start the presentation, I'll provide a brief study overview and update of where we're at. And then the bulk of the presentation is going to focus on the two subject intersections here tonight, including US 16, 16B Catron Boulevard intersection build options, as well as US 16 Neck Yoke Road intersection build options. And that gets us into the fourth goal for tonight's meeting, is that's to gather feedback from you all, as well as answer questions. So if you're unclear of what some of these build options look like from the presentation, please ask someone during the open house portion, and we'll hopefully be able to clarify those for you. One thing I do want to stress here is at this point in the study, no recommendations have been made on any of the build options that we're going to present here tonight. Basically, everything is still on the table. We have additional analysis to complete. We have additional refinement to complete on these build options. So everything is still on the table. There are no recommendations here in this presentation or anywhere in the open house tonight. And then finally, your feedback will assist in the refinement, analysis, and development of those recommendations. So the feedback that you do provide will be valuable here moving forward over the next couple months. Study team, study contacts, myself, John Wigan with HDR, the Consultant Project Manager. Steve Graham is the South Dakota Department of Transportation Project Manager. The DOT is the lead agency for the study, and at the onset that they organized a study advisory team to help guide the study through completion. And it's made up of members from the DOT, Federal Highway Administration, City of Rapid City Area Metropolitan Plan Organization, as well as Pennington County. The DOT also retained the services of HDR and Ferber Engineering to help them deliver the study through completion. So just a quick overview of the study. The overall US 16 corridor study area is US 16 between the Keystone Y and Cathedral Drive Fairmont Boulevard. That includes the two subject intersections for tonight's public meeting. That also includes US 16 service roads throughout this area, as well as US 16 ramps within the Rockerville area. For study goals, the overarching primary goal that we're looking here is to develop long-range plan for the US 16 corridor. And that's looking to answer two primary questions. And that first one is, what improvements are needed over the next 20 to 30 years throughout this corridor to address transportation related issues and needs? The second question is, what is the timeline for those improvements? We understand some of those improvements are here more in the short term, next 5 to 10 years from today. Some of these are much longer term, kind of that 20, 30 and beyond timeframe. So by answering those two questions, that helps us to develop a plan for this stretch US 16 to help the DOT schedule and plan for future projects throughout this area. Primary components of the overall US 16 corridor study is, again, the US 16 corridor itself, looking at all the intersections, lanes, access points, potential future roadway cross sections, ITS needs, just a whole host of items. And that was the purpose of the previous public meeting, where we were asking for your feedback on transportation related issues and needs to study as part of this overall corridor study. Within that, there are two focus areas, and that's the subject of tonight's meeting. That's US 16, 16B Catron Boulevard intersection and US 16 Neck Yoke Road intersection. The projects coming out of recommendations at these two locations represent the first major projects coming out of the study. The DOT currently has projects planned at these two intersections in the fiscal year 2026 timeframe. The fourth primary component is the environmental documentation, and that's the process of identifying potential environmental impacts, then as evaluating and assessing those with all the concepts and build options that we developed for the study. So from a corridor study schedule standpoint, we're right towards the middle of the overall schedule. There are two tracks that we're running through, and the first one is that overarching US 16 corridor study, where we're developing high-level concepts addressing needs and issues throughout the entire corridor. Currently where we're at with that, we are in the process of developing some of those concepts, and that will extend here for a few additional months. We will be looking to present those concepts in their entirety at a summer 2020 public meeting. And from there, we'll be developing recommendations in the fall of 2020 towards the end of the year. We are fast tracking the two subject intersections here tonight, that those have been previously studied through other studies. We have final build options, and that's what we're going to present here tonight, looking for your feedback, and then we'll be able to move into developing recommendations at these two locations here in the early part of 2020, so that they can begin design here later in the year. So with that, I want to transition here into the intersection build options overview. Here's the agenda for the remainder of the presentation. We'll start with US 16, 16B Catron Boulevard intersection. I'll provide an overview of a few of the build options. We do have some animations to help you understand the traffic flow and operations in this area, as well as a few preliminary evaluation measures. From there, we'll move to US 16 Neck Yoke Road intersection area, again providing an overview of the build options, as well as some preliminary evaluation measures. One thing to keep in mind is that with these build options, we have a number of variations that have little minor tweaks here and there. With consideration of time, we'd probably be here for an hour and a half at least through this presentation. Condense that, we're going to focus on the primary build options, not get into all the different variations. So I encourage you that if you're interested in a specific location, to please refer to the boards or the study website to see the full compilation of those variations. And then I guess just one more reminder to please hold all questions and comments for the open house portion of the meeting. A lot of that gets into that there's certainly things I'm going to miss just due to time constraints. So hold those questions here to the open house. So starting with US 16, 16B Catron Boulevard intersection, the draft purpose and need for a future project at this location. The purpose is to improve traffic operations and safety and support the planned mixed-use urban development that is occurring in the area. And that's looking to address three primary overarching needs, including long-term traffic operations through the intersection, historically high crash rates, and the rapidly urbanizing land use here throughout the area. And with that, we've carried forward two build options from a previous 2016 study, and one of those is a single point interchange, and the other is a displaced left turn intersection. So starting with single point interchange, the build option here, single point interchange, the footprint that we're anticipating, very similar to many of the single points that are here in Rapid City and really throughout the Midwest. And that this is a grade separated interchange, that US 16 will go up and over US 16B Catron Boulevard. On US 16 northbound, southbound then, that will be the uninterrupted flow movement. That is the movement that will not go through the signalized intersection. That intersection will be located down on US 16B Catron Boulevard. One of the benefits from a intersection spacing standpoint that the single point provides is that it provides a great separation from Les Hollards Way and Healing Way. And that's one of the concerns we'll show here a bit in the animations. Just looking at the spacing between those intersections and potential weaving conflicts if people are exiting on the off-ramps, turning right, and then wishing to make an immediate left, whether it's at Healing Way or Les Hollards Way. That's something we'll touch on here in a little bit. One thing along US 16 that because of the ramps extending north and south from the single point interchange, that it does require closure of Addison Avenue and Tucker Street. I'll have a little bit more information on that as well. So the two variations I want to share here tonight are really how we treat the northbound and southbound off-ramp right turn lanes. Whether those are free movements, similar to what's out there right now for that northbound to eastbound right turn movement, or whether those are signalized in order to help traffic wishing to make that downstream left find acceptable gaps to make that movement. So here is a layout of the single point, this one alternative or build option 1.1, and this incorporates free northbound and southbound right turns at the ramp terminal intersection. So just to help you orient that Les Hollards there with the signal to the left, you have your single point interchange there in the middle. The blue rectangles represent US 16 northbound, southbound lanes going up and over the single point interchange. You have Healing Way over there to the right. And then this is the instance here where you have your northbound, southbound ramps coming from the north and the south. Those off-ramp locations, you have the free right turn movements heading towards Healing Way or Les Hollards. Second build option I want to touch on here is the build option where instead of those northbound, southbound free right movements, they are now signalized, and that requires us to include dual right turn lanes here on the off-ramp, the northbound off-ramp as well as the southbound off-ramp. And what that does is it provides a signal control gap in traffic for that downstream weave movement. For example, someone coming south and wishing to use the off-ramp, that now with the dual rights, that they will reach a signal there at the right turn, and then that signal will provide them that gap in traffic to maneuver over to that westbound left turn lane at Healing Way. So we do have some animations here to help you understand and see what the operational effects are with these build options. Here's the first single point, and this has the southbound free rights and northbound free rights from the off-ramps. And here's where you can start to see that issue that we're talking about, that white car that is on the right turn lane wishing to find the gap in traffic to move over to the left turn lane in Les Hollards Way. And you can see the impact that creates on that right turn lane and the cues and the potential safety impacts something like that could occur. You can see then when there really is minimal conflict, operates really well. And that's generally the intention of these free flow movements at these types of locations. So with that, we're going to move through the interchange, and we are going to move to the east side, and you can take a look at the interaction between the single point and Healing Way. And one thing to note with the traffic volumes that you're looking at, that we forecast the volumes out to year 2050. So that's accounting for all the development in the area, as well as increasing traffic on US 16, as well as Catron Boulevard. So the volumes you see here are reflective of increased volumes in the year 2050 of the PM peak. So these aren't existing volumes going through here. This is really almost double from what we see out here on a typical summer day. So as you can see from an operational standpoint, single point functions very well from a traffic operations perspective here. So here's a look at the single point interchange. You can see northbound and southbound US 16 up and over the signalized single point intersection. And really, from a functionality standpoint, very similar, to the to these types of single point interchanges here throughout the area. With that, so I want to move to the single point interchange alternative build option 1.2, and this is the build option that includes the signalized dual northbound and southbound rights from the off-ramps. So here you can see over there on the right side of the screen, that red bar indicates that that movement has a red indication on the traffic signal. They're stopped. So in this instance, it's expected, while in the previous free flow version, it's unexpected. One of the benefits here with the dual rights is that if you're looking to make your downstream left maneuver, you can position yourself in the appropriate lane. There on the off ramp, and then it's a pretty seamless transition over to Les Hollards Way. Moving through the single point again, pretty much a very similar footprint to build option 1.1 that you previously saw. Then on the east side, this is a location that we'll see what the development looks like and what these traffic patterns look like in the future. But this would be one of those movements that we anticipate less of a demand, taking that northbound off ramp and turning right, and then immediately left to Healing Way. So in the instance of the previous build option, that this quadrant functioned very well, that there's minimal delay, minimal traffic requiring to stop. So when you bring in this traffic signal, that to some extent may initiate some delay that wouldn't be there with the free right turn movement. And then just to look again what this build option looks like from a traffic flow perspective. Great. So do want to move on to build option 2, which is a displaced left turn intersection. And this is an at-grade intersection that is not an interchange. US 16 northbound southbound traffic is required to go through a signalized intersection here. Therefore, there is that potential for interrupted flow on northbound and southbound US 16 movements, where on the single point interchange, that's uninterrupted flow going up and over the intersection. The key from an operational standpoint for this at-grade intersection is that the left turns, in this instance on US 16B Catron Boulevard, occur at crossover intersections to the east and the west of the main intersection. And by doing that, it reduces, essentially eliminates a phase within the main intersection and improves signal timing overall through that intersection, and thus improving overall operations, particularly compared to your traditional full access signalized intersection. One of the drawbacks to this is that it provides the least separation from Les Hollards Way and Healing Way, and a lot of that has to do with, instead of this right turn lane, northbound, southbound right turn, coming back close to the intersection, here they are entering traffic much further away from that main intersection because those right turn movements traverse really outside of the intersection to get beyond that signalized crossover location. With that, you decrease the spacing between Les Hollards Way, US 16, and Healing Way by about 400 feet on either side. From a US 16 perspective, northbound and southbound and access, that unlike the single point interchange that requires closure of Addison Avenue and Tucker Street, this build option allows for consideration of maintaining some sort of access at those two locations. So the example we have there in the bottom left is Madison Avenue in Loveland, Colorado. The layout in these build options is very similar to that with regard to where the crossover intersections will be located and those certain movements. With US 16B, Catron Boulevard representing the left to right traffic, and US 16 traffic would be represented by the northbound and southbound traffic. So the primary build option variations are related to how we treat the right turns, northbound and southbound right turns. I want to touch on the first two build option variations, 2.1 and 2.2. And here's what that proposed layout looks like, where we have the free northbound, southbound right turns, very similar to the initial single point interchange in that treatment. You can see where the crossing over left turn lanes for the eastbound, westbound directions occur. That is following the green shading through the intersection. That basically, if you're heading eastbound, you wish to take a left. Instead of proceeding to the main intersection, you come to this intersection, this is signalized, and then you cross over on the other side of the conflicting westbound through movements. The second build option is signalizing that northbound and southbound right turn lanes, again to provide that signal control gap in traffic for the downstream wave movements. But other than that, the overall footprint is very similar to the first build option. So we do have animations for a look at this one. Again, we'll start on the west side of the intersection, that this is the overall footprint, what that would look like. And here you can see that westbound, which is the southbound to westbound right turn. You have the free movement on the outside of the crossover intersection. The crossover intersection itself, you can see the westbound through movement has the green bar, and that's the green indication at that intersection, while the eastbound lefts, wishing to go northbound on US 16, is stopped at the crossover lit signalized intersection. And one of the benefits here, like on the west side here, that the eastbound through is not affected by that signal, that they are able to bypass around that traffic signal, strictly for the eastbound lefts and the westbound throughs. So here we're going to move through the intersection and head to the east side. And one thing I want to point out, if you remember where that northbound to eastbound right turn traffic was coming into US 16 in the previous, the single point options, and now you can see that decrease of about 400 feet and what that does to the spacing there with Healing Way in this build option. So here we're going to follow this westbound left heading into the main intersection. They get the green at the crossover location. And with signal timing, the goal is that that left turn movement will not need to stop twice. That these signals are coordinated. As you can see, that westbound left continues right through the main intersection, and they can continue southbound on US 16. So one thing I want to show you here is that, for the most part, this full access intersection, that most of the movements are similar to what's out there right now. See, here you have northbound, southbound, left turn lanes running concurrently, which is very common in your traditional signalized intersections. And now you have your northbound and southbound through lanes running concurrently. And then coming up, this is where the operational benefit is at these intersections. So instead of next moving to eastbound and westbound lefts running, they can run concurrently because they're on the other side traffic. So you have eastbound and westbound through running, as well as eastbound and westbound lefts all running at the same time. And that's what we mean by eliminating a phase within the traffic signal. That they do not need to run back to back, they can all run concurrently. So here is build option 2.2, and this is the one that has the northbound, southbound signalized right turn movements instead of those free movements. You'll see very similar to the single point, you have the dual right turn lanes coming from southbound US 16. They stop at the same time as the eastbound left turn movement, while the westbound through has the green indication through the crossover intersection. And then with the signal timing here, that southbound right and the eastbound left run concurrently through the crossover. And the timing can be set to adequately clear those cues in those directions. So moving through the main intersection here, Take one more look here on the east side, what that looks like. Follow these vehicles back to the main intersection. We'll take one more look here at the operations at the main intersection. And I think, one takeaway with all these build options, you don't see any significant queuing or inability to clear those queues with the green indications. Both of these build options do a very good job from a traffic operations standpoint. And as a reminder, these are 2050 volumes, representing really nearly double from what's out there today. So we do have, these animations will be playing again during the open house, so if you need to take another look or have any specific questions, we'll have state advisory team members over there to answer your questions on any of these animations. One thing I want to touch on is potential US 16 typical sections and speed. In terms of determining what US 16 is going to look like from a typical section perspective, a lot of that is more integrated with the overall US 16 corridor study, because we need to consider areas outside of this specific intersection area. So just want you to know that each build option is compatible with a variety of cross sections and does not necessarily dictate a future speed or what that typical section will look like. So just something to keep in mind, that either of these build options are adaptable to whatever that future typical section, what that recommendation is. So with that, a few examples being considered in terms of what the typical section is. One of those is 4-lane divided with depressed median. Basically what's out there today could be considered a no-build condition, but that is one of the sections considered moving forward. We're also looking at 4-lane divided with the raised median. An example of that is Veterans Parkway there in Sioux Falls in the picture. And one of the things that we're considering is a variety of cross-sectional features. And that includes, are we looking at curb and gutter or no curb and gutter, shoulder or no shoulder? What's the median width going to look like? What's in the median? Is there opportunities for aesthetic treatments? Those are some of the considerations that we'll be looking at as part of the overall US 16 corridor study. From a speed range perspective, we're kind of targeting that future speed range of that 45 to 55 miles an hour. Again, regardless of the build options and what that ultimate recommendation looks like, either of those are compatible at that range of speeds. All typical sections, as well as the build options, incorporate pedestrian bicycle connectivity. That's certainly something we do not want to, something we don't want to do in the future is make US 16 a barrier to bicycle and pedestrian traffic in the area. And one other thing I want to touch on is that, when we're looking at this wide range of typical sections, they can be applied singularly, in that a single typical section can be applied from Moon Meadows north up to the cathedral, or maybe it's appropriate to apply different typical sections, or maybe north of 216B Catron Boulevard is reconstructed first, and maybe that's more of an urban typical section. And then south to Moon Meadows, maybe that's can stay rural longer, and then maybe that goes to a suburban type of typical section. Those are some of the questions we'll be answering as part of the overall US 16 corridor study, not really necessarily as part of these intersection build option components of the study. So ultimately, the considerations include access density, traffic operations, safety, cross-sectional features, and goals for the facility, ultimately in those recommendations of the future typical sections. I touched on this a little bit earlier, but did want to mention again the access summary with relation to the build options. Starting to the north, at the northern limit of this intersection studied sub-area, Promise Road, it's been identified as a potential future signalized intersection location. From spacing from a displaced left turn standpoint, certainly is good intersection would be currently as it is now in terms of spacing from the existing signalized intersection. But something to consider with the single point interchange is that we don't want to extend the ramps too close up to Promise Road and limit the functionality of a future really priority intersection at that area. So one of the things we look at is design speed of the future and existing US 16 corridor, and we want to make sure and bring those ramps back far enough away from Promise Road so that you don't have lanes accelerating and merging within the intersection area. So example of that is in the top right, where that northbound on-ramp comes in. You're almost 1,000 feet from the Promise Road intersection. So that's something that we'll be looking at from a design speed perspective through this area. Like I mentioned before, the single point interchange does require closure of Tucker Street and Edison Avenue. That currently, those access points are right within the ramp, merge, and diverge areas. And that's not where we put intersections, both from an operations and a safety perspective. So an example of what that treatment would look like at Edison Avenue, there's a cul-de-sac there on the east side, and then that access of Edison Avenue is closed to US 16. With the displaced left turn intersection, since that's an at-grade intersection, everything is relatively tight to the existing intersection area. Those two locations are considered for further analysis as part of the displaced left turn build option. And then one other one I want to touch on is there's an access further to the south, what we call Section Line Road. That access as well is also open for consideration with both the single point interchange and the displaced left turn build options. So with that, I want to touch on a couple of preliminary analysis measures for the two build options. I'll start with the 2050 peak hour traffic operations, which looks at those future traffic volumes of the morning and afternoon commute times. Also have a predictive safety analysis, as well as construction costs for both build options. So looking at this future year peak hour traffic operations, again from the morning and evening commute periods, we look at this in two different ways, just want to show here. The first one is from an intersection delay perspective. And what that does, it measures the delay of all traffic entering the signalized intersection. And this, you can see up there, the main intersection delay and level service. Both intersections, whether it's the signalized single point interchange intersection or the displaced left turn intersection, meet level service goals for the study, which is level service C, representative of 35 seconds or less of average delay of all vehicles entering the intersection. When we look at total delay through those signalized intersections, single point does perform slightly better than the displaced left turn. Again, this does not account for US 16 northbound and southbound traffic that's going up and over the signalized intersection. So still, even with that, there's a slight improvement with the single point interchange, about 4 to 6 seconds of less delay than the displaced left turn intersection. So looking to account for that free uninterrupted movement of US 16 northbound and southbound traffic, we do a travel time analysis. And the first one is looking at US 16 corridor travel time. This is looking at essentially the time it takes to travel between Promise Road and Moon Meadows. Single point interchange in this scenario, you're around 120 to 130 seconds. Again, this is uninterrupted flow through the 16B Catron Boulevard intersection area. Displaced left turn is about 20 to 25 seconds greater to complete that similar trip. And a lot of that has to do with that potential delay of getting the red signal indication at the displaced left turn intersection. Another measure is we can look at area travel time. And this is where you basically put a circle around a number of intersections, and basically all traffic entering into that area and then exiting, we measure the travel time it takes from when they enter and leave the area. So this accounts for not only US 16 northbound southbound traffic, also accounts for 16B Catron Boulevard traffic. All traffic entering this area. So strictly from an apples to apples comparison with a similar area, we're at that 85 to 90 seconds for the single point interchange, and we expect slightly more delay for the displaced left turn intersection on the range of 10 to 15 seconds greater. Again, that accounts for all traffic entering the area from all directions. So just a couple of the conclusions here from an operations standpoint, that the single point interchange does perform better, experience less delay through the single point interchange, and really that's to expected because you have high priority, high volume northbound, southbound movements that do not need to go through a signal, that they have the free movement through this intersection area. With the displaced left turn, where everybody has to enter that signalized intersection, it operates very well as well, and it's considerably better than doing nothing 20 to 30 years from now. And one of the surprising things is that it's really not that far behind. When you look at these comparative measures, in a 5, 10, 15, 25 second difference depending on your route through the area. Another analysis we look at is predictive safety, and that's the predicted reduction in crashes based on geometric modifications in future year traffic volumes. We compare these build options to the scenario where we don't do anything, that the intersection that's out there right now, if we don't do anything, what's the predicted number of crashes at that location, and we compare that to if we do something and we make geometric changes. In this instance with the single point interchange or the displaced left turn intersection. And with that, we looked at two different scenarios. The first one where Addison and Tucker are closed. And with that, the single point interchange here through this area, we'd expect about 26% reduction in injury crashes. These are injury and fatal injury type crashes compared to doing nothing out here over the next 25 years. Displaced left turn intersection also shows a pretty good reduction as well, slightly less than the single point, but at 23% compared to doing nothing. We also looked at if you maintain access at Addison and Tucker with the displaced left turn intersection. And that's where you start to see the impacts of bringing in access points and those conflicts throughout the corridor. So that 23% reduction with the displaced left where Addison and Tucker is closed, we'd anticipate more in the 10% reduction with Addison and Tucker remaining open. And then from a cost perspective, so, with the traffic operations and safety, that the single point does show greater benefits than the displaced left turn intersection. And this is where things kind of flip. With the single point interchange, you're in the range of construction costs in the $29 to $30 million range, and the displaced left turn intersection in that $14 to $18 million range. And a lot of that has to do with just the additional pavement for an interchange, as well as the structures of US 16 up and over the single point interchange. So with that, I want to move on to US 16 Neck Yoke Road. I just have a few slides here at this location. The purpose for a future project in this area is to improve safety and access management in the area of Neck Yoke Road, and that's to address these overarching needs, including the high weighted crash rate. There has been a number of severe crashes at this area on multiple access points with the driveway access through the area, as well as the long-term traffic operations that we would anticipate traffic to continue to grow both on US 16, but also on the Neck Yoke and the various driveways in the area. So we've developed two build options. First one is a reduced conflict intersection, also known as an RCI, J-turn or 3/4 access with downstream U-turns, and also a signalized intersection. The one thing to keep in mind across both build options, that they do include access consolidated to a single access point in the build options I'm showing here tonight. So build option one is a reduced conflict intersection, and that is a 3/4 access at a main intersection with downstream U-turns. Example here is US 169 in LeSueur, Minnesota. That you can see here is the 3/4 main intersection. And from the safety benefit, where you really see that tremendous safety benefit of these types of concepts, is that all traffic can turn into the side road. You can turn a left in, you can turn right in to both the north and the south in this instance. But when you get to the side street making that turn out, you're limited to just turning right out. You're not able to turn left at that main intersection. And what that does is that eliminates that high severity angle crash that we see at a lot of these intersections. Particularly when you have these divided high speed, high volume roadways and trying to judge two gaps in traffic to make your way across or to turn left. So in this instance, instead of turning left, you turn right, and you move immediately into this left turn lane that is extended back to the main intersection, and continue down to the U-turn, and you make your U-turn and head on the direction you wish to desire. From an operations standpoint, there is a significant benefit here to both the intersection as well as the high priority, high volume route. In the instance, in this build option, that US 16 through traffic does not need to stop. From an operational perspective, that is significant, being that this intersection will be located at the bottom of a hill with steep grades on either side. So the build options that we've developed are, it's the same type of footprint with an RCI. It's really where we locate that, whether it's at Neck Yoke Road, as shown here, or it's at the central driveway. So with this, you can see that all movements from US 16 have either the left or right turn lane. So you'd be making your turns from a turn lane, and then you would not be able to turn left out of Neck Yoke or the Reptile Gardens driveway. You need to make a U-turn at that downstream location. Then build options 1.2 and 1.3 are located at the central driveway. The top one is on the existing alignment for US 16. And then the bottom one, we're looking to see if we can achieve a little bit more separation between this service road and US 16. So you see that US 16 is shifted closer towards Reptile Gardens. But really from an overall result of that, we really don't gain a whole lot by doing that. So the second build option is a signalized intersection. This is a signalized full access intersection. And by doing that, US 16 traffic may need to stop if they get the red indication, again, at the bottom of a hill. One thing that we did look at was the potential impacts of lane utilization, that there is a fair amount of trucks that head along US 16 through this area. And we were looking at evaluating the impacts of when you have a situation that you see down here, which is on Highway 2 in Lincoln, Nebraska. You can see here a truck right at the start of the queue, where it had the red indication, and then you can see the long line of passenger cars trying to jump around that truck, as well as the two trucks that are back closer to the upstream intersection. So we wanted to look at that impact. So we anticipate that would happen quite frequently. Again, stopping at the bottom of the hill, the trucks would likely not be able to get all up to speed up until they get to Moon Meadows. So you're likely going to run into situations where you have a few trucks in the right lane, and then a long line of cars in the left lane heading back into Rapid City. And even at a modest lane utilization adjustment, where we saw 2/3 of the vehicles in the left lane and 1/3 of the vehicles in the right lane, that created operations that did not meet goals for the study, therefore necessitates a third eastbound through lane starting at the traffic signal and continuing all the way up to Moon Meadows. So that's what you can see here in the two build option footprints for the signalized intersection. And so you can see where the lane addition occurs prior to the traffic signal, and then that continues up to Moon Meadows. Again, the same two locations for the RCI build options as well. So from a traffic operations summary perspective, looking at the intersection itself, that the reduced conflict intersection performs very well. You see on average less than 10 seconds of delay per vehicle. You're kind of in that 4 to 8 second range. A lot of that has to do with the zero delay on US 16 and the eastbound, westbound through the intersection. Something I didn't mention before, that other states have found that when you get into these situations where you have a lot of high speed, high volumes of traffic on the highway, that those gaps become very difficult to find to make that left turn crossing movement. And you can find that as those volumes increase, that it's actually going to be quicker to turn right, drive down to the U-turn, make your U-turn and turn back, than if you're sitting at that intersection waiting to make it left. Not to mention that those two consecutive movements are much safer than trying that risky gap maneuver in high traffic. At the signalized intersection, we needed to add that third eastbound through lane to achieve level service speed, which is the goal at this intersection, representative of 20 seconds or less of average delay. So that measure is of all traffic entering the intersection being that 15 to 19 second range. From a predictive safety summary, compared to doing nothing, leaving the configurations and the access points that are out there today, by implementing the reduced conflict intersection and consolidating all those access points, we anticipate upwards of 66% reduction in injury and fatal injury crashes over the next 25 years after implementation. A signalized intersection also shows a pretty notable reduction in the 59% range. The one thing I do want to point out that a lot of this reduction is associated with the consolidation of access. But when you look at the specific main intersection treatment, whether it's reduced conflict intersection or the signalized intersection, that the signalized intersection does result in over 2 times more crashes than reduced conflict intersection. So that's really one of those huge benefits of reduced conflict intersection, is the safety benefits it affords to vehicles traveling through that area. Then from a cost summary perspective, reduced conflict intersection are in that $4.8 to $5.4 million range. Signalized intersection is in that $5.5 to $5.7 million range. So with that, next steps here in the study with regard to these 2 intersection build options, that here over the next month we'll be compiling feedback, refining the build options based on your feedback, we'll be completing analysis, and ultimately developing recommendations here in the early part of 2020. With relation to the overall US 16 corridor concepts, we will continue developing those concepts in anticipation of a summer 2020 public meeting. So with today's open house, with relation to the intersection build options, that we have layout boards over in the room over there. We have the preliminary evaluation measures, more detailed evaluation measures than what I shared here tonight. We have boards on environmental impacts. With regards to the 2 build options, we also have the animations playing on the screen. And if anybody's interested, we do have a video that we can play on a reduced conflict intersection if you're interested to see what those movements can look like. So just you can come up during the open house and we can walk through that. Out in the lobby, as I'm sure many of you have seen, we do have some initial US 16 corridor concepts. These are very preliminary layouts of potential concepts at locations south of Neck Yoke Road. So we're certainly, if you do have some feedback on those, we'd be interested to hear what you have to say on those. But for the most part, from the corridor concept standpoint, that will be the goal of the next public meeting in summer 2020. So with that, I just want to thank everyone. I know this is a lot of information. I guess pretty long as well. But really just thank you for your interest, and we look forward to your comments and feedback of what you've seen here tonight. So thank you.